Once upon a time long ago, in a small village on the edge of the forest, a terrible accident occurred that the inhabitants will remember for a lifetime. One day, in early autumn, two young boys had gone into the woods to hunt. They were experienced hunters and often went to these places, so they did not consider it dangerous. They took only the essentials with them and went off in search of prey. However, when night fell, the boys did not return home. Their relatives and friends began to worry and went in search of them. They searched the neighborhood, but found no trace of them. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but no one knew what had happened to the missing hunters. The villagers began to fear for their lives and stopped going into the woods. One day, however, a local man decided to go into the woods for mushrooms. He didn't believe in omens and thought it was just an accident that the two boys were missing in the woods. However, when he approached the place where the largest and tastiest mushrooms grew, he saw a terrible sight. On the trees hung the nibbled bones and clothes of the missing hunters. Their personal belongings were scattered on the ground, and large birds were circling above them. This gruesome sight caused the local resident to run in panic to the village, where he told of all he had seen. However, his words were not true, and the people did not believe that the hunters had been killed. But during the night, strange things began to happen. The villagers heard screams and groans coming from the forest. They thought they were just the usual sounds of the forest, but they got louder and louder. One night, a local resident heard something wandering by his window. He went to the window and saw a human face framed by long hair that showed traces of blood. The face disappeared, but the resident could no longer sleep. The next morning, he told the other villagers what he had seen, and they decided to go into the woods in search of the truth. They found the place where the bones and personal belongings of the missing hunters had been found, and they found a strange building there, which had previously been disguised as bushes. They decided to go inside and found that it was a labyrinth full of traps and hidden paths. On the walls were drawn gruesome images depicting sacrificial rituals and bloody sacrifices. When they reached the center of the labyrinth, they saw there an ancient stone sanctuary where several entities resembling demons were located. They wore hoods and were armed with sharp knives. They were busy making sacrifices, during which they screamed and made strange noises. The villagers were terrified and tried to flee, but all the exits were locked. They began to realize that these demons had turned their village into their personal hunting ground and were using the villagers as victims. But they didn't give up and began to fight for their lives, using whatever was at hand. They managed to get out of the maze and back into the village, but some of them were mortally wounded. The rest of the villagers decided to do everything they could to destroy this forest and everyone who lived in it. They burned the forest and destroyed the sanctuary, but they knew that this would not guarantee safety. Their souls would always be haunted by the memories of what had happened.